Hello, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Scott Robertson from HaulageHub. Thank you very much for joining us today, Scott.
Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, nice to be here.
It's great to meet you too. Please give us an overview of your business and its position in the supply chain cycle, please.
Yeah, certainly. So HaulageHub is a technology company. We've been going 3 years. So we're very much centric around road freight. And we offer digital solutions in terms of a digital freight marketplace, control tower solutions. Essentially, the business actually uses AI, machine learning and automation, which has all been developed in-house here within HaulageHub. And effectively, what our technology does, it brings load opportunities and matches them intelligently to hauliers, which basically allows a decrease in empty running and also improvements in other areas of efficiency. So it removes waste, particularly around a lot of admin and typical communications that are traditional with the organising of road freight. So it's kind of used in a number of different ways. A lot of people sort of position it very similar to sort of like a 4PL, but it's a lot more probably of an evolution beyond 4PL really, because effectively there is no middleman. HaulageHub effectively replaces that in a lot of aspects. So essentially the technology is used where anyone, regardless if they've got one load or 1,000, can effectively place their loads on the HaulageHub digital marketplace, and that then gets intelligently matched to one of our several thousand of fully vetted haulage operators. So effectively from that, the haulier gets earns a little bit more money because they're not having any commission taken away in terms of any middlemen. There is a small transactional fee. There's no subscription fees that are essentially associated to it. So any hauliers that are looking for work can essentially access the platform for free, have a look around. If there's work there that fits them, great. If it doesn't, then they don't effectively have anything to do. So essentially it's risk-free. I mentioned a little bit about 4PL. So we do actually have some 4PL operators actually using the solution now to actually help enhance their business in terms of if they do have loads to subcontract, they use our technology to help with that facilitation, because like I mentioned before, it removes a lot of the typical traditional waste in terms of communication. It streamlines the whole message, gets your load in front of thousands of different hauliers all within a matter of moments. So mentioned before as well, it's also used as a control tower tool beyond just a marketplace. So we actually have a bit of a mixture actually of large 3PLs using technology in its sort of semi-white label format to help manage their subcontracting volumes. And also we actually have quite a few large shippers and manufacturers who have actually started to use the platform directly. So they're actually putting work on which would typically be associated to a single large 3PL. They're actually getting all the benefits of what that brings, but they're actually enabling the work to be accessed by smaller local hauliers across the country. And again, the main driver around that is around the reduction of empty running and removal of waste that the technology enables.
Thank you. And obviously we'll be covering sort of the green transition, which we'll cover some of that stuff off later. The one question I always ask everyone is, what brought you into the lovely logistics world?
Yes, it's a really, really interesting one actually. So I was fortunate enough to sort of grow up around trucks and diesel. So my dad had a small firm with three trucks. And so, yeah, I very much sort of got a very good understanding of what road freight was sort of all about from a very young age. My dad, to be honest, he kind of probably tried his best to actually put me off of getting into it, to be honest. I remember a few times when I was sort of growing up and whatever, he was like, right, whatever happens, you're not going to work in transport. And anyway, I obviously didn't take to his words. When I was at university, there was a placement intern opportunity available which came up at Eddie Stobart's. So I did that whilst I was on my placement year, which was really good. It kind of got me into sort of the analytical world of what was currently sort of building within transport and logistics. When I finished university, I decided that I wanted to be a consultant. So I worked in some various strategy roles. and an opportunity actually came back to go back to East Hobart. So I then went to head up their commercial division. Did that for around about 5 years, and then whilst I was sort of coming towards the end of that area, I thought, right, I kind of wanted to get to running my own business. So I set up an independent consulting house, basically looking at strategy and commercial specialisations for 3PLs to help with their business development and commercial strategy. And whilst I was actually there, is where I met my business partner Craig, who's also a co-founder of HaulageHub. So essentially, one of the tools that I was sort of after was a digitisation of creating transport tenders, effectively streamlining the process that was involved to actually respond to large transport tenders. Anyway, I reached out to Craig, and we actually created a tool called Route Rater. What we actually did, we actually commercialised that solution. It's still sold, it's still being used by several of the leading 3PL logistics firms today in terms of helping it with the automation and streamline of the creation of their transport, road tenders, quotes, ad hoc, spot hire, works for all that. And then interestingly, it was actually Craig and I were actually going for a meeting to actually discuss the Route Rater tool. I think this was in 2018. And I actually mentioned to him before we went there, we went for a quick coffee, and I mentioned the idea about having this, the creation of a digital freight marketplace with heavy emphasis on sustainability. And that kind of where it started from, really. I think immediately after that was when COVID hit, and that then created an opportunity where there's a bit more free time, so I decided to go and complete my MBA in that time. And then coming out of COVID, Craig and I basically made the decision that let's go ahead, let's create this digital freight marketplace. Obviously, it wasn't called HaulageHub then. I'm still looking for the name, and that was very much on the back of the previous driver shortage a couple of years ago. So we decided, we set it up. Obviously, it wasn't the easiest time to set up a transport business during that period. But yeah, it was obviously, in hindsight, it was a great decision. And our growth since then has been phenomenal. So that's kind of the story of how we sort of got into it, really.
Great, thank you. Thanks for doing that. That's great. Please tell us about the sector you're in and how you see it developing over the next few years.
Yeah, so in terms of the sector that we're in, it's very much centric around full truckloads at the moment, particularly around the United Kingdom. So as I alluded to earlier, we've seen phenomenal growth, whether that's from the ad hoc spot hire basis where people are looking for a one-off movement, or if it's like large 3PLs looking for a new streamlined subcontracting solution, or large shippers and manufacturers posting work on directly. We see our solution as something that is very advantageous in terms of driving efficiencies. It removes a hell of a lot of waste, and we sort of see that as a growing trend, really. So obviously at the moment, there's lots of emphasis on the green agenda, reducing empty miles, obviously massive around that, and our solution provides a ready-made opportunity to effectively allow companies to tackle any sustainability issues that they have related to empty running, and because of the AI and the automation, it proactively works to reduce empty running from the loads.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And what do you see as the sort of biggest opportunities and threats, for your business and the sector?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a big opportunity around the capitalisation of the need for more sustainable solutions. So I think technology, we've seen that develop a hell of a lot over the last probably 5 or 6 years. It's become more affordable, more accessible, particularly in an industry that hasn't probably embraced technology too well. So if I think about going back to the 90s, early 2000s, it was pretty much non-existent. even today we've got large 3PLs that operate AS400 systems that, developed 30 odd years ago. So I think there's a real opportunity over the next probably 5 to 10 years to actually really capitalise on using technology to drive the industry forward, to create more opportunities around about increasing efficiency, more access to work, more automation, and driving that empty miles problem that's within the industry down. So, in terms of a threat, as it were, so 30% of all HGV miles in the country are empty. So, it's a pretty bad statistic, really, that 1 in 3 trucks that you see on the road doesn't actually have anything in it. So solutions such as ours really help tackle that. In terms of obviously threats that are sort of in the industry as well, probably sort of everyone talks around the ones which are sort of commonly known, to like driver shortages is obviously massive. I think the average driver age in the country at the moment is around 58, and it seems to be creeping up. So more needs to be done around actually getting more drivers and people that are coming into the industry at a younger age to actually become lorry drivers. Because the solutions and the ideas such as HaulageHub are obviously brilliant, but they are still reliant on the fact that we do need more drivers. So I'd say that is the single most biggest issue across this sector in whole.
No, thank you. And we've had that mentioned a number of times, both around the UK in these podcasts, but also in the US, and it seems to be reflected all around the world. Because it's not a particularly attractive sector. Critical to UK PLC, people don't aspire naturally to get into, to be a HGV driver, etc. Even though it makes everything tick. And it's very interesting. Your comment that a third of vehicles are either carrying fresh air or empty. And it'd be great. It'd probably difficult for people to admit it, but if there was a way we could all measure that, it'd be great for the UK PLC if we can improve that. As well, because also if you're carrying a load at half the rate, you're better off carrying that than nothing fresh air. Whilst you don't want to devalue the marketplace, you want to make it as efficient and green as possible. That's very interesting. What are people in the sector not talking about that perhaps they should be?
I think like what we've covered there, obviously the sort of the key topics that everyone's talking about at the moment are probably driver shortages and also topics like freight crime. And for me, in terms of what people aren't talking about that probably shouldn't, it's probably a little bit around maybe the geopolitical landscape that we currently find ourselves in. So there's lots of uncertainty around there. And with that uncertainty, it seems that the supply chains and freight is actually becoming more difficult to navigate and organise. And obviously with that, it's becoming more and more expensive to actually manage your transport and logistics solutions, really. So obviously it's an industry which is already runs to incredibly tight margins. To be honest, I don't really think of an industry like it in terms of the margins that are actually within transport versus the actual capital outlay that it actually takes to sort of set up a logistics business. It's quite unique in that perspective, really. Costs are continuing to go up, and it's kind of going to be, the thing that people need to be talking about is how these solutions are actually going to get paid for, in terms of ensuring the long-term sustainability of the industry as a whole. I think is probably the key topic that needs some real focus from everyone within the industry and also government as well.
No, that's a very good point, and what you said there sort of ties into sort of next question, really. And I'll let you answer that about the green transition. But the challenge, I think, as both as a consumer and a watcher of this industry, is that everyone wants a greener, world. But the challenge is, who pays for it? That's the challenge, because, all consumers want, and probably customers want, the green solution. But if the green solution has a big premium, it's a difficult thing. So in what you do and obviously your experience, how do you see the green transition impacting the sector, but also what you do as well?
Yeah, obviously, the green agenda, as it were, is very much at the forefront of why we set up HaulageHub. So, it was one of the reasons that we did this effectively to help tackle empty miles and make the industry more efficient. So, you mentioned there about obviously our our solution helps match load opportunities based on reducing empty running. We see that that's something that's very attractive to our customers, and particularly some of the larger brands where sustainability is at the forefront. So we can't see that growing and becoming more and more important, really, for shippers and buyers and the like. Obviously, there's a major interest in lots of customers having the usage of electric trucks on the movement of their goods. I'm all for that, to be honest. I think the problem at the moment is obviously the cost of moving to electric is not ideal, and particularly if you're a smaller haulier. I'm not quite sure how that the affordability is going to work at this stage. Obviously, the infrastructure needs a hell of a lot of improvement, particularly around about the range. I think if we talk to anyone about the electrification of road freight, I think truck range on electric vehicles is probably the key question, really. And I think it's fair to say that over the last few years, we've seen the range in electric trucks, the way that they've evolved has gone leaps and leaps and bounds. And I think that whole issue around about range will probably be tackled in the next 5 to 10 years. But at the moment, it's probably not there to sort of enable the whole industry to go fully electric. And like I said, that something needs to be done on the cost of them as well. So, for a small family trucking business, 1 to 5 trucks, the idea of probably getting a brand new electric Volvo or Scania probably isn't within the budget. So maybe there needs to be maybe more that's done to help incentivise the involvement of that.
Yeah, and also you've got the physical weight of the batteries, which can take part of a load, can't it, on a HGV at the moment. And obviously, hopefully, battery technology will improve. And obviously, as you mentioned, the depreciation, what the cost of purchasing a truck, which is very high, and depreciation, which is very quick and painful. Something somewhere needs to give, doesn't it? Because otherwise, it doesn't make economic sense sometimes. We all want it, and maybe it needs legislation, stroke support, or tax incentives to help us along, in that process. During your career, what development in the sector has surprised you most?
Probably the way that the digitization has actually evolved. So, like I said, if I sort of go back to the early part of my career, so when I sort of started out in sort of like 2007, 2008. The industry wasn't really any different to what it was in 1990 when my dad had his business. Everything was all done on phone calls and whiteboards and the like. And I think we sort of been quite lucky, really, to sort of see the whole way that it has become more digital over the space of 15 to 20 years. And obviously, we've had in that time the introduction of digital transport management systems for planning, route optimization, tracking, telematics has all come on quite a bit. And then probably very much in sort of like, I'm going to say, so probably around about 2017, I really started to notice how technology was actually becoming more available. Obviously the introduction of AI is obviously we've still got to sort of see the benefits of that truly as across the industry. But yeah, I think very much sort of the way that the industry is embracing technology and digitization. It's taken a bit of time, but I do think it is starting to actually sort of make its way into the forefront of logistics now, in terms of particularly around about the opportunity it brings with efficiency and the removal of waste. So I think it's going to be quite exciting to sort of see how that further evolves.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. And as with my recruitment business, we're talking to all logisticians, which we do every day in all different sectors. It seems the visibility and tracking, being able to know where your product is critical, for everyone, and that just makes life more efficient, because if it's in point A or point B, no one's going to either email you, ring you to ask those questions, or any supplier, and it's almost managing by exceptions, isn't it, really? We've all had it when the parcel's put through your door or delivered outside, and you get an email from the supplier, probably coming 20 seconds later, it's been delivered. It's just amazing how it all works, and and we'll sort of take it for granted, and it will keep going. And interestingly, we're doing a podcast in the next few weeks about artificial intelligence and how it could affect the logistics world. And no one knows really, but it would be interesting to watch how it works. And it will come into it, and it may come into it in a different way than we expect, but we shall see. The final question I'm asking everyone, and we've had some very interesting answers on this one, is if you could speak to the Prime Minister, then what would you ask? It's a he at the moment, but what would you ask them to do to help your business grow and flourish?
I'll probably answer this from across the board, really, in terms of probably not necessarily just for us, but obviously, we're a young company, and I think there probably needs to be more done to probably help businesses actually start up. So businesses like ours, so we're looking to obviously make significant impacts into the way road freight is managed within the industry, removing waste. Helping the reduction of CO2 from removal of empty miles, creation of jobs. Obviously, it's slightly different than what we're doing. We're going to attract a different type of person into the transport industry. So I think there probably needs to be more done to probably help businesses like ours actually sort of start off. Obviously we've worked incredibly hard. We're self-funded to get to where we've got to be. We don't have a penny of debt and we're quite fortunate in that aspect. But there's a lot of companies that sort of start off that aren't. I think there probably needs to be more done to actually help businesses get off the ground, and particularly in those first couple of years, to allow them to actually sort of thrive and really help contribute to the United Kingdom's economy, and whether that's through the creation of jobs or through automation and streamlining, traditional industries like we find ourselves in, really.
Oh, thank you. That's great. And I think that reflects on that, to encourage entrepreneurial activity, which I think will be good for UK PLC. That's what we need. So I just want to say thanks on behalf of myself and all our listeners and viewers. Say thanks to you, Scott, for talking about HaulageHub, and maybe wish you every success for the future.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.